and welcome to the TTELT podcast, Teaching Tips for English Language Teachers, a program of educators worldwide. My name is Maya Moore, and I'll be your host for today. On today's episode, we are joined by Dr. Andre Boyer, also known as Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre is an educator and former Peace Corps volunteer. His ESL career began in 1989 while he was stationed in Japan in the military. Since then, he has taught in several countries, including China, Georgia, and Estonia. Dr. Dre has also been an English language fellow for the Department of State in the United States. It's a very vast career in education. And so we welcome Dr. Dre. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And today, Dr. Dre will be sharing with us some tips on cultivating a human connection in the classroom. And so, Dr. Dre, please get us started. When we talk about a human connection, I think that, many of us think, okay, that's just obvious what human connection is, but tell us what you mean by that and why that has been important for you to establish in the classroom.
Thanks, Maya. Over my many years of teaching experience, and my short-lived experience, I learned to reflect on my impact and the interactions that I've made with others, is not only how I've impacted them, but the things that I've said as well with them. My conduct, my words, my exchanges with not only with students, with family, subordinates, counterparts, colleagues, and friends, they all have a substantial meaning. As a leader, educator, parent, mentor, my actions really contribute to others' feelings and their reactions. For this, I think about my role and the influence that I've made upon them, no matter what position I'm in. So, and as a teacher, based upon the definition of leadership, it is to get one to act or get one to meet one's objective. I'm a leader. All right. So a tip that I like to give, share with you with the human connection is, why I decided to become a teacher. It was really when I was younger is the impact that teachers had on me. And particularly, I can remember a teacher telling me that I could be and do anything that I wanted to do. I took that to heart, and it motivated me to study. And not only to look at my immediate environment, at that time lacked a very sufficient environment or structure to strive. In addition, it was an early piece of advice that really I internalized. And I do the same in my classroom. For example, I provide constructive and positive feedback to all students and challenge students to do their best. From my experience, many students are worried about making mistakes and using the language, whether it be with pronunciation, grammar, or even the contextual use of the language. So in my classrooms, I encourage them to learn from their errors or mistakes. I also tell them, even those whose first language is English, make mistakes. And I ask them, do you make mistakes when you speak in your first language? Yeah. So I tell them, it's important that when you're speaking a language, if you're able to accomplish your goal and people can understand what you're saying, and that's more important than what pronunciation and grammar, and that's when success in using the target language really happens. I remind them that the goal is progression, not perfection. So that's kind of my first tip with the human connectedness.
I like that. And I like what you shared about your teacher having this impact on you and basically, seeing you, acknowledging you as a person, as a human being, and not just a student, right? But you, Andre, the person, and acknowledging that, hey, you can be anything that you want to be. And that's so powerful when it comes from a teacher, right? Because we spend so much time in the classroom as children.
We do. And even as adults.
And as adults.
And whenever we're continuing our career or getting that degree or something, many times we feel that, why am I doing this? Or I can't do it. We psych ourselves out, I like to remind myself, I'm doing it because I have a goal. I have a reason, and I put that in front of me. I'm a big believer in goal setting and teach that in my classroom as well. But making that human connection, I think, is the first stage in any relationship. And that really leads me to the second aspect. As I mature and went on with my educational pursuit, I had another teacher take a personal interest in my life. He wasn't pushy or nosy or anything like that. He was sincerely interested in my well-being at home, and it made it a point to take some of his personal time to steer me in a direction that would make me strive for excellence in everything that I did.
Okay.
I had another teacher that really intervened in my life, and showed me that having an education can not only help myself, but help my family. And this is the second piece that I'm talking about, that shaped, my life, my teaching in my life. I was influenced by those teachers who took a personal interest in me. And so for me, teaching is not only what I do, it's how I define myself. In my classrooms, whether it be online, face to face, or in a hybrid, I take the time for us to get to know each other on a personal level. For example, an activity that I got from another person. I have to give this person credit because I helped and I
Only
kind
fair.
of changed it. And it's called the coat of arms. And it really provided us, and it could be used as an icebreaker, an opportunity to describe qualities about ourselves and each other. For example, this coat of arms activity is we have a shield. And in that shield, we have 5 areas. In space number 1, or 5 areas of 5 quadrants, they draw something that categorizes a recent peak performance. In space 2, they will sketch out something about themselves that very few people know. In space 3, they draw a symbol or a picture of how they'd like to spend their spare time. In quadrant 4, they fill in something that they're very good at. And in space 5, they draw something that really epitomizes their personal model. So this coat of arms activity that I've used quite a bit, not only in my ESL classroom, in my business classrooms as well. Also, I've used it in business meetings and as a leader and supervisor. It not only gives students a chance to use the targeted language, but also provides a first stepping stone, which I think is the human connection process. We make personal connections to appreciate our differences, as well as accent the commonalities that we have as people. So that's kind of my second tip that I like to talk about, and activities that I use with making that human connection.
Well, thank you for sharing the activity as well, because our listeners, love to hear about new approaches, new activities, new icebreakers, all of that, and really and how you use them. So if you could just walk us through, like, how would you introduce this, in the classroom? And for our listeners, if you could let us know, have you been working mainly with, K through 12 or university students? Like, at what age group have you been working? What age group have you been working with when you use this
Primarily,
activity?
yeah, sure. Primarily, I've been working with adults at the
No.
university level. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Could it be used at the high school level or lower K through 12? Possibly, with some modifications,
Right.
and using differentiation based upon their level. So with this coat of armor, and a lot of kids, I think nowadays, they look at the shield, and that's what the coat of arms is that big old shield. And
Right.
that shield is really identifying who you are, or a crest. So I think it can be used that way, introduce it as, we're going to talk about how you see yourself. And so you're going to share some things about yourself and these categories. I can tell you, in one of my classes, in one of the quadrants, I asked them to draw something that very few people know. And some people say, well, I don't want to share that. I said, that's okay. If you don't want to share that, put secret. Or draw a lip and put a hash through it and say, no, I'm not telling you that information. So it can be modified depending on your students' needs, as well as their level with using the language. It has worked well for me in business settings, like I said, and it's worked well for me with university students. And with this aspect, I use it as well later on in life in our lessons. So I remember these personal things that students who they are. So I make those connections from who they are and what they want to do in their lives. So in my lesson, so I'll bring this up. I remember this student wanted to do this. So and so I bring that up. And again, I'm making that human connection with everyone. And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you. As I was just going to ask, yeah, thank you for talking about the modifications, because I think most activities can be modified for different age groups, different levels. But you're also talking about what you do with what you learn in this activity. So I'm just wondering if you could spend a little time talking about that. Like after the students finish this
Mhm.
activity, then what's the next step?
Sure. Okay. One way that I've done this in my classroom is actually I have them take their coat of arms and then present it, or they can, another way of that done it individually, depending on the class time. So each student stand up, or I'll put them in a pair work. So I'll say, okay, find your partner, and then you're going to share your coat of arms with someone else. Now, when I do pair work, one of the things that I like to challenge my students is that they're going to have to outshare. They're going to share what their partner told them. So I'm
Yes.
using all the skills. So in the outshare, the presentation piece is, well, you're going to take your partner's shield of arms and you're going to introduce someone. And then
Yes.
again, we're making that human connection as a classroom, and we're really defining that classroom culture as well. So we're setting that up.
Yes, I love that. And I love that's a great beginning of the semester, beginning of the school year type of activity. We're getting to know each other. And I love the sharing out of the other students' work. Like you're not sharing out about yourself, you're sharing out what they told you. So we're practicing the listening skills, all of that. And I love that you brought up, agency and letting the students know, like, hey, if you don't want to share your secrets, you don't have to.
It's really my third connection, or my third aspect of it that really informed my teaching, and that is that we are more similar than we are different.
Mhm.
We can acknowledge, value, and celebrate our differences, and at the same time, accentuate our similarities. As we mentioned in the introduction, I've traveled, lived, and worked in many different countries. And many times students ask me, Dr. Dre, what are some differences between American students and us? And I would ask them a question. I say, do you like doing homework? Do you like spending time with your family? Do you want the best for yourself? And most of the time, others say, yeah, I do. And then I would say, just like you, some American students don't like homework.
Right.
They do enjoy spending time with their family, and they want the best for themselves too. I tell them, about my experience of traveling, and know that yes, there are language and cultural differences, but we have more things in common than we realize. From my experience, people are people, and it's really is our humanity that connects us all. So that's the last tip that I like to share with you about that human connection piece. So I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
So if you could wrap up
Sure.
your tips, how would you sum it up? Give us
Yep.
a summary
Yeah.
of your tips.
Sure. Sure. You know, I believe the connection we make with others is important in teaching and in life. For me, I was told that I could do and be anything that I wanted. Someone took a personal interest in me as a person, and I learned to stress human similarities. I assert the more we connect as humans, the more we can assist each other in goal attainment in and out of the classroom. So I think these three things with the human connection has made an impact on my teaching the most right now.
Thank you so much for sharing your tips with us today, Dr. Dre. We've learned a lot. I know our listeners will have some time to, kind of reflect on this and reflect on how they can really cultivate human connection in the classroom. And basically what you're saying is just connecting with students on a human level, on a personal level, showing the interest, right? And then taking what you find from your students in these activities and plugging that into lessons
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
future. So thank you again. For our listeners, thank you so much for joining us again on another episode of TTELT, brought to you by educators worldwide. You can follow, like, and subscribe to TTELT on your social media platforms, anyone that you listen to. And we hope that you'll try one of these teaching tips this week. And when you do, we'd love for you to share with us how you are using these tips in your classrooms. Leave us a comment or a voice message on social media or at TTELT.org. We'd love to hear from you.
We will be taking a break for the month of December, but please take this time to look at our prior episodes on TTELT.org. There's lots of great teaching tips for you to review during this break season. And please join us again in January 2023 for lots of great new teaching tips. Thank you for all of your support from the TTELT team. We'll see you in January 2023.